If you are looking at Akela dog food, this video is for you. Now, in recent times, there has been a resurgence in dry dog foods that claim to be very good for your dog. But in this video, we are going to dissect Akela 80/20 and we are going to determine whether that is a good or a bad option for your dog. Now, the first thing I will say is that you should always read the ingredients for everything you give your dog, irrespective of whatever companies tell you on the front of the packets or on their websites. You should always do your own due diligence and turn that bag of food over and analyze those ingredients. Having said that, Akela is an 80/20 dog food whereby 80% is animal protein and animal ingredients and 20% tend to be your botanicals. What does that mean? That means that they emphasize a lot on meat content. Meat is an integral, very important part of your dog's diet, and the higher that meat content, the better. There isn't such a thing as a food being too rich. Whether your dog has an allergy or an intolerance to a particular protein, that is a separate matter, but there isn't such a thing as a food being too rich for a dog. So the higher the meat content, the higher the quality of the product. At the end of the day, we want to be paying for meat. We don't want to be paying for filler. A kilo of chicken is always going to be more expensive than a kilo of rice or a kilo of potatoes or a kilo of wheat or barley. And so with that in mind, we want to analyze Akela and see whether this is a good or a bad food. Now, Akela claims to be for working dogs and perfectly tailored for working dogs. But remember that that is just a nomenclature. Anytime I say that something is for working dogs, what that means is that that product doesn't attract VAT. So anytime you are being sold something for working dogs, it's not that it's for working dogs, is that it's VAT free. It's neither good or bad. It's simply that's VAT exempt. So a good food will always be a good food and a bad food will always be a bad food, irrespective of any labels. Working dog, puppy, or whatever. A good food is a good food and a bad food is a bad food. Now, whenever we look at Akela's ingredients, what we see is clearly labeled ingredients. We see every single percentage, and that is something that we really do enjoy and like on this channel, because we can hold that manufacturer accountable and they have to be tied down to that recipe. So if they say that chicken is 23%, they cannot deviate from that 23% chicken. Whereas if I don't specify what percentage or what ingredient I am putting in the recipe, that becomes then very loose and I can do whatever I want, and you, the consumer, tends to be the one who's damaged. So the first recipe we are going to look at is the duck, and is the 80/20, and the composition is incredible. We have 80% duck, we have 46 dehydrated duck, 31 freshly prepared duck, 2% duck fat and 1% duck stock. Again, this would be a single protein food. This would go really well if your dog has any sort of allergies but is not allergic to duck. We then have sweet potato 9%, tapioca 3%, chickpeas 2% and alfalfa linseed 2%. Again, sweet potato, a very low amount of sweet potato, is a low glycemic carbohydrate and is probably the carbohydrate you want in your dog's food. We then move on to the fish feast, and here we have freshly prepared trout 18%, freshly prepared salmon 17%, freshly prepared whitefish 11%, dehydrated herring 11%, and we then have sweet potato, dehydrated salmon, dehydrated whitefish, salmon oil, chickpeas, tuna, lentils and salmon stock. all good ingredients, all wholesome ingredients, all ingredients that we want to see in our dog's food. How about the original puppy salmon recipe, you ask? Well, we have freshly prepared salmon 61%, we have dehydrated salmon 15%, sweet potato 12%, tapioca 6%, salmon oil 3%, and salmon stock 1%. The common thing, the one common theme on Akela's recipes and in Akela's ingredients is the absolute cleanliness and how everything is so clearly labeled and displayed on the bag of dog food or cat food. And they do a 90-10 cat food, which is again pretty good. Now Akela says something which is quite surprising, and it's something that not many suppliers do say, and this is that the livestock is raised for human consumption, and then the cuts of meat that are desirable within the human food chain are removed, and the remaining carcasses and organ materials are what then predominantly are used in dog food. These are nutritious and palatable materials that animals would naturally eat. However, due to excess supply, we often use the cuts of meat that are desirable for humans too. E.g., on a recent factory tour, the batch of chicken used was originally destined for Marks and Spencer's, but they had oversupply. It was used in our dog food instead. And this is absolutely incredible. What they are saying is that they can supply your dog with the same ingredients as we eat in M&S. And that's something that's really rare when it comes to dog food. Like some other manufacturers, they do adhere to the whole prey ratios, whereby they try to mimic, they try to replicate what a dog would eat in the wild. And this has to do with the inclusion of organ meat, of bone, of different tidbits of cartilage, of heart, of liver within the food. Those bits are absolutely crucial to your dog's development and is often the difference between a very good food and a food that is mediocre. So whenever you see that a company adheres to the whole prey ratios, do check the ingredients, because that is potentially a winner. Now the video is not without bias. As you can probably know by now, we stock Akela and we are proponents of the food. Having said that, you have to understand that we would not sell anything that is bad for your dog. So we specialize in nutrition and we bang on about nutrition all day, every day. And so if you are looking for a dog food that is suitable for your dog, or you are interested in learning more about what's good for your dog, what's bad for your dog, if your dog has any allergies, if your dog has a sensitive stomach, whether vegetables are good for your dog, what can be the reasons for plaque and dental disease in your dog? Why is your dog diabetic? Why might your dog have pancreatitis? If these are questions you are interested in finding out more about, I highly recommend you follow us on this one.